One of the biggest misconceptions women have around dating in their 30s is assuming that now they are in a weaker position dating wise than they were when they were in their 20s. They look at younger women and see youth. They think of their family plans and feel pressure around fertility. They think of their past and see trauma and heartbreak and baggage. And because of that, many women, maybe this is you as well, assume that dating will only get harder with age. But what if I told you that the thing that actually makes dating harder is not your age, but the fact that you are still trying to date like you're 25? And what if the thing that makes a woman truly captivating to a man is something that most women in their 20s don't even possess? Because in my experience, the women who create the biggest emotional impact on men, the one who fascinate men the most, are hardly ever the youngest women in the room. These are the women who have grown into themselves. These are the women who know who they are. These are the women who have opinions, standards, boundaries, life experience, depth. The women who have stopped being girls and actually became women. And way too many people underestimate how insanely attractive that transformation actually is. So in this episode, I want to talk about the fears that come up while dating in your 30s, but also about what you gain as you turn 30 and beyond. Because finding a life partner in your 30s can be so much easier and so much faster than in your 30s. But you have to know how to use these assets that you gain throughout your 20s to your advantage. If you're new here, my name is Laura Nagel. I'm the author of The Dream Framework, the first and only dating coaching program with a 6-month results guarantee. I have helped over 120 women find the one within weeks and months, and I would love for your story to be next. Let's get into it. Let's start with something that is the most surface level, the easiest to debunk, but at the same time, still a vital part of the conversation when it comes to dating. Let's talk about looks. The moment you turn 30, sometimes even before it, you start being targeted with ads around anti-aging and procedures to prevent it and cosmetics and makeup and all these things, constantly making you aware of the negative effects of aging, which in turn makes aging an insecurity, makes something to be ashamed of. Raise your hand if you ever said, I turned whatever age and I'm just gonna claim that that's my age from now on. That used to be me all throughout my 20s. This is how broken the system is, that it makes us want to stay at a certain age. And for what? Because when you think about it, your body obviously doesn't resemble the body of a teenager, but that's the whole point of being a woman and not a child. But it's not like your body is falling apart either. When you turn 3, you are literally just past the first third of your general life expectancy for women in the Western world. So what sort of aging are we talking about? You are maturing at best. This is all semantics, I understand it, but on a practical level, your body is in no way worse than that of a 20-year-old. And when it comes to your face, I would argue that many women actually achieve their peak in their 30s. You know that buccal fat removal surgery that used to be so popular last year and all of the models were getting it? That's what aging does to you. Naturally, surgery free. And so if a man is looking to date a girl, they will not go after you, but that's not someone you want to date anyway. Men who want to date girls are looking for someone who is easily impressed, easy to control, easy to mold into whatever they want that person to be. That's not you, and that's good. And these are the men who will be looking for teenager-like features. But when it comes to a general concept of beauty, the moment you turn 30 is actually only when you're headed towards your peak. Now that we have the looks part out of the way, let's stay within the physical side of things, but move on to the next point, which is fertility and the fears around it. Biology and fertility is not something you can negotiate with. And this is why the fears around fertility became so much stronger the moment you turn 30, because if you're in your mid-30s, it means you have less than a decade to start a family if this is something that you want to do for yourself. And this can put you into the vicious cycle of, I know I cannot be desperate, because dating from a place of desperation is just not working. This is when you pursue too much. This is when you lower your standards, and it's most likely not going to work out anyway, even if you do try to settle. So you know this is not the approach that you should have. At the same time, it's really hard not to have it, because you know that if you don't make it happen happen now, it will never happen. So very often it feels like you only have two choices: either risk not having children at all, or risk having children with the wrong person. The third option that you're missing is that you can find the one, you can't find him quickly, and you still have enough time to do everything in order if you use the assets that you accumulated. And when I say assets, I don't mean financial assets. I mean the intellectual and emotional assets that you have accumulated throughout your life up until now, to speed up that process and play your cards right. But we'll get to that in the second part of the video. Now let's go back to listing all of the common fears and resistance points that women in their 30s face. Another very common fear that I hear in my clients is that I have burned so many times in the past. I am genuinely worried this will keep getting in the way. I feel like maybe it's beyond repair for me, in the sense that I don't know if I'm ever able to trust anyone again, and it's just gonna take too long for me to recover from it, if that's even possible. And I get it, because if you've opened your heart so many times only for things not to work out, being cheated on, being ghosted, being led on, it's very difficult to believe that this time it can be different, it can be better, because you've told this to yourself so many times and yet it never turned out differently. The next fear, actually related to the previous point, is that many women that I work with, they have built an amazing life for themselves. So they have a great job, they often own a property or multiple properties, they have an amazing circle of friends, they travel, they're well educated, they worked on themselves, so they have a great relationship to the self, to their family, and it actually feels like a massive risk to try and disrupt it all with dating. Dating feels risky, in the sense that their life feels just so good and they know how much work it cost them to get to that place. Now they're stuck between, I know I want a partner to go to that next stage with, but at the same time, life is really not bad the way it is now. And what I don't want to happen is that when I start dating, I go back to that place of chaos again, and that place of heartbreak and worrying and sleepless nights and analyzing what he said and what I said and worrying if he still likes me. It's also being afraid that because you've got so many achievements, you are actually too much and too intimidating for men, because they'd rather date someone who is not their equal, or maybe even a threat to their ambition and how successful they seem next to their partner. And it's easy to get into the habit of thinking that girls in their 20s are easier to date because you can easily impress them and a man doesn't feel threatened by them. So me, with my opinions and with my successes and with my high standards, I'm just intimidating and I'm too much. I know I'm exceptionally good at what I do. I know I worked hard to get there, sometimes probably even harder than most men. And my dating experience has proven to me that men don't react well to that. They are either put off by it, or they're trying to take advantage of my position so that they can get ahead themselves. It's hard to trust, and it's also hard not to fear dominating that partner, which is unattractive for you, and for them to feel dominated, which also is a turn off for them, because every man wants to feel masculine in a relationship, which in turn makes you feel like maybe there are just no good options left. If you're in your mid-30s and it feels like all of your friends are married, all of your friends are having families, it feels like all the good ones are taken and the only options that you have are men with kids or men who are divorced and with kids, which is not something that most women that I work with want. This is 100% a scarcity mindset thing, because let's not forget, you just need one. You need one person. And you cannot convince me that there isn't a single person who is in your age range or in your desired age range who has what you're looking for. That's just not possible when you consider how big the human population is. And one more thing that I just thought of that I know many of my clients struggle with, and maybe you do too, is that fear of maybe I just became too independent for love. Maybe I am too stuck in my ways, stuck in my routines. Maybe I just can't make it work with a man anymore because I know how I want my days to be. I just don't know if I'm able to fit someone into my life at this stage. That's a very real fear that is difficult to erase on a theoretical level. That is something that you can only work through once you're in a dating situation. But it's again a catch-22 because you cannot be in a dating situation if you're not dating, right? So let's talk about the reason why we all gathered here and the reasons why dating in your 30s is easier. Let's talk about those emotional and intellectual assets that you have gathered throughout your 20s. And if you use them right, will make the dating in your 30s so much easier, so much more effective, and so much more enjoyable. Number one, throughout your 20s, you've had the time to experiment and to understand what works for you and what doesn't when it comes to dating. Most women in their 30s have had at least one serious relationship or have dated. So they know how they don't want to be treated, that's for sure. They are so much clear on what it is that they do want in a relationship, what works for them, what doesn't, why it doesn't work. They understand themselves so much better. They know who they are, they know what their strengths are, but also their weaknesses, and they know what they want to work on, what they're choosing to accept. And because they understand themselves, they know what are their boundaries in terms of who and what they're willing to mold themselves into and who they definitely will never do. And that makes it so much easier in terms of recognizing the man that is actually a good choice, somebody who you don't just have good chemistry with, but somebody who is actually compatible long term. Because when you're in your 20s, if the chemistry is there, if you find them physically attractive, if the sex is good, if they make you laugh, that's all you need. And the vision of the future is something that you might be talking about, but when you're in your 20s, talking about it is enough. So many men seem like a good match because they're good at talking, but it's too early for you to be verifying these things. And this is very often why so many of the relationships that you have in your 20s don't go anywhere, because you fell for the potential, and I don't blame you. We all did it because that's all you can fall for if you're dating someone your age. But then it never really got anywhere. In your 30s, you know who you are. You know what you were able to build and achieve for yourself. You know what it takes to do that. And you're able to recognize these traits or lack of them in another person. So not only are you aware of your strengths and weaknesses and the complementary traits to yours, but you're also cut through other people's bullshit way, way quicker. If you're in your 30s, you also most likely have done therapy, which means you understand your past. You understand yourself so much better, what triggers you and why. You know your communication style, your attachment style. You know how to make it work. And that makes you a better partner, but also a much more powerful player in the dating game because you're so much more aware of what it is that you bring to the table. So you know who you are, you know who you are not, you know how you can contribute to the relationship. And this is something that women in their 20s don't even think about because they don't think long term like this. They are still in the wishful thinking phase, which is cute, but it's not how life is built. That strategic, pragmatic way of thinking is not that well developed in them yet, which translates into how they approach life. And so if you want to build a life with a woman in their 20s, you need to prepare to be her mentor. And again, some men like that, but the men who are looking for an equal, a partner, will appreciate that knowledge and that wisdom that can only come from experience. And that brings me to another point, which is lived experience is what makes humans truly fascinating. Don't get me wrong, women in their 30s or people in their 30s in general do have their adorable moments. but the naivety that they have, the point of view that they have that just comes from not having enough of experiences under their belt, it might be endearing at first, but it gets tiring with time. And as somebody who's a bit more seasoned, and I say just a bit seasoned because, like I said, you are literally just past the threshold of the first third of your life. This is what makes the conversations much more inspiring and stimulating and interesting. This is what allows you to contribute to the relationship more than just the face value, the literal value of your face, but also what you're able to do and the finances that you're able to bring, which, let's be honest, in your 20s, in most cases, it's not a lot. You know how I always talk about energy polarity, masculine and feminine energy? When it comes to the true feminine, I see the feminine as a fire, as a force of nature, as something that creates and inspires. But you're only ever able to truly channel that feminine energy when you are secure within yourself, when you are secure within that fire. And that comes through self-exploration and understanding of the self in many different situations and contexts. It comes from stable self-love. And I'm not saying that the moment you graduate from your 20s and turn 30 is when you become extremely self-confident and your self-love is stable. But I'm saying this is something that is so much easier to build when you are in your 30s, because even if you don't see yourself as extremely attractive and magnetic and irresistible yet, when you work on this, you can find so many examples of you already being that person. And even if you don't, it's so much easier to understand why you're not that person yet. What are the obstacles? Because you've been through all these situations. You can analyze them, you can extract feedback, and you can create a strategy to tackle that accordingly. If you're in your 20s, you don't know what you don't know. And that is a massive advantage of getting on the other side of your 20s. So the bottom line of today's episode is to make you understand that being in your 30s is not just neutral when it comes to dating, it's actually your advantage, thanks to all of the lived experience that can be translated into better standards, better filters, a strategy that allows you to optimize how much time you spend on dating versus the results that you get, and allows you to make that whole process so much faster, so much easier, and so much more fun and effortless, which, if you're watching this video, I'm sure dating right now is not. And if you want to start your dating life out once and for all, use the link in the show notes to read more about the Dream Framework. And if it sounds good, book an initial consultation where we will analyze your situation, where we will analyze your dating history, your current dating situation, identify what is wrong, why it's not working, and what needs to change in order for you to find the one within the next 6 months. Because as you know, the Dream Framework, my baby, my signature program, comes with a 6-month results guarantee, which means I guarantee that you will find the one in 6 months or less. If that sounds good, the link will be in the description. That's it for today. If you know someone who needs to hear this, show them some love by sharing this episode with them. And if you found this episode useful for you, make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to this. I post every Sunday. See you next week.